Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about perhaps your most famous novel, Creature from Jekyll Island. So before I saw the Yuri interview, before I saw the Black and White interview, my one friend always had it on his table. And my friend, by the way, very good financially, pretty wealthy guy, and but also truth teller, not just like a financial guy who doesn't pay attention, where he's like, man, that book changed my life. Can you talk about that? Because I haven't read it yet, but I know about its origins, etc.
Well, the creature from Jekyll Island is explained in the subtitle, A Second Look at the Federal Reserve System. Now, I'll make this very short because this is a big topic in itself. But the Federal Reserve System is something which is better known now to the average person, but still generally, most people have no idea what it is. They still think it's an agency of the federal government, like the State Department or something, or like the Treasury Department. But it's not. The Federal Reserve System is a cartel of banks. It's no different in structure from an oil cartel or a peanut cartel or banana cartel. It just happens to be a banking cartel of American banks. It has no connection with the federal government any more than the peanut cartel has, except they were smart enough and also wealthy enough that had enough money to be able to buy politicians and influence public opinion through their ownership and control of the media. They were able to get a law passed which converted their cartel agreement between themselves into law. Their cartel agreement, if you can imagine this, it's all the rules and regulations of what the cartel members must do in order to, they agree to do this, and the other thing, and not compete with each other and that kind of thing, so that they could monopolize a particular market and charge whatever prices they wanted to, whatever policies they wanted to enact. There would be no objection. Everybody would move as one. So even though there were many different banks involved, the cartel acted as though it was one giant bank in terms of the public. That's what cartels are. So they had this cartel agreement and they took it to Congress. And if you can imagine mentally taking a big fat eraser and erasing it off the top of the page where it said cartel agreement and writing in instead Federal Reserve Act. That's basically what it was. They took it to Congress, and with their tremendous influence, these idiots in Congress passed it into law. So now we have the phenomenon where a private cartel is issuing our nation's money and controlling all of the important economic decisions in our nation. And they act as though they are the government, which is why people think it's the government. If you don't do what they tell you to do, you can go to prison because the Federal Reserve Act is now a law, and that law is enforced by the government. So their rules and regulations for their cartel are enforced by the federal government against you and me. And we think it's government because the government acts on their behalf, but it's a private cartel. Now, if you wonder why the economy has been tanking and the banks always get bailed out, and right now their profits are bigger and better than ever before, their balance sheets are bigger and better than ever before. How come? It's because the banks are running the show. People think that the federal government controls the banks. But when you really get knowledgeable of how this thing works, if you, in other words, take that red pill, you can see that it's the banks that control the government.
Wow.
And this is big. This is huge. And with that understanding, everything on the economic scene is understandable and makes sense.
Do you think that book got so popular? Were you the first to really explain that, or maybe you did it in a digestible way that people had it seen? Like, where did you learn it? I guess would be a good starting point.
Oh, well, certainly I was not the first. By all means, there were many authors. And in fact, when I started down this path, I looked at all these books that were out there in the Federal Reserve, and I thought, who needs another book? I mean, these didn't do any good. Nobody read them, and not enough people, and that didn't bring about any change. And so what makes me think I can write a book? Why would I write another book? And I decided that, just as you said, it needed to be done in a different way. Most of the other books were excellent. All of them were excellent, I should say. But a lot of them were preoccupied with mechanistic questions. Well, what is the discount rate? And how does the Federal Reserve work on this group and that group? How are these policies set? How often do they meet? Where do they meet? How many votes do they have? What's the discount? All these things, these technical things, and it's boring as all get out. I saw the story as a whodunit. I saw it as a great crime. So I tried to write it as a kind of a whodunit mystery, and you were supposed to figure out who was the killer, where they buried the body, and what closet it's in, what the motive was, how they did it, and so forth. And so I put a little twist to it to make it try to make it seem more interesting. And I dealt a lot with the personal words and records of the people themselves who were committing the crime. I wasn't writing just about them. I would let them tell the story themselves in their own words. So those two things together, I think, made a big difference. Unfortunately, our book has gone crazy. I never thought it would go past the first printing, and now I don't remember. I think it's approaching the 70th printing or something like that.
Wow.
Fifth edition.
I wanted to ask a question about another question, but I have, interestingly enough, my friend who's a rapper, he's doing very well. He's more conservative, like a red pill type rapper, but he dropped a song called The Creature from Jekyll Island, which was, I believe, a reference to your book. You know, I think he inspired it. Can I play 10 seconds of it and we got to hear your reaction?
Oh yeah, I got to hear this.
Yeah, because I was like, I just thought of that from, let's see. Patriot, his name is Patriot J. Here it is, Creature from Jekyll Island. We'll give it a 10-second, 20-second. Let's see.
Rich man meeting, so we in private. We up to something, so keep it silent. Printing some money, yeah, we gon' try it. Here comes the creature from Jekyll Island. Rich man meeting, so we in private. We up to something, so keep it silent. Printing some money, yeah, we gon' try it. Here comes the creature from Jekyll Island. Here comes the creature from Jekyll Island. It just creeped up on you really quiet. If you speak up, they gon' get you silenced. That's JFK, how they getting violent. They charge us interest on shit we buying. Fiat is dripping like psilocybin. It's just a product of old white man. Perpetual death to the day we dying.
What do you think?
Well, I never thought I would become a fan of a rap song, but I'm #1 fan now.
It's got good lyrics, right? He's talking about the financial.
Yeah, he's read the book, clearly.
Oh man, he's gonna be so pumped I played it. And I've heard the song a few times, but that time I was really listening to lyrics. I was like, oh, that song's better than I thought it was. So
yeah. Well, you know, it's when you tell the story in the way in which it needs to be told. It's not just a bunch of data and statistics and dates and numbers, but in terms of the human element and the impact it has on your life. Now, all of a sudden, I think everybody, I don't care what their interests in their lifestyle or their age or their economic status, level of education, they're all interested because it's human. It affects us in the inner side, you know? So
right.
I think that's what he's reaching for right there.
He's a super smart guy who gets the big picture, because a lot of people get caught in certain politics or people where he's very wise guy who gets the big thing. And